Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning La La Land. Today we are talking hashtag Wealth Wednesday, and Zlata here, she's got all the magic we need to make it happen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I love that dress.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
From a pie.
Yes. It was a turtleneck, but then there was a mic situation. Didn't really. Yeah, that works. It works.
Yeah, I mean, we're just being honest here. Very comfortable this morning. So you are a friend of Ms. Erin Alexander. She connected us. Obviously, she's a great friend of Rob's.
Yes, we love her. Big shout out.
Yes.
We love you.
Thank you. Good morning. We're thinking of you today. So basically, we'd love to know just what was your journey to She Sells? You have quite the inspirational story.
It is quite a story. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back.
Take us back.
But I'm going to try in
back.
3 sentences.
We go way back.
Or less.
Oh, no. We've got some time.
I was not born in the States, as you can imagine with a name like Zlata. I am from Moscow, Russia. I didn't really move to the States until I was 16. And my mom was actually a traveling journalist, which is how she ended up in, drumroll, Alaska. So here I go from a city of 16 million people to Alaska.
And I read you knew all of 2 words.
Hello and Big Mac, which kind of showed in about a couple months. It was quite the journey. I spent quite a few years in Alaska. That's actually when I started my fitness journey. And it was an unfortunate situation, like a gym class. You know, it's not often that we hear a story about actually a kid being bullied by a teacher for their weight. That's not really how that usually happens, but that's what happened with me. Wow. That's how my fitness career began, which then fast forward 10 years later is how I started my first company, which is called Sexy Fit. And we help women with a sustainable lifestyle shift, and millions of people listening to the podcast, thousands of books sold, lots of amazing coaches. And then it came time for me to make a decision whether this was the vision that I wanted for myself. And it was really hard to look at everything that we've created over time, and I had an amazing team, and say, I don't want this anymore. Like, this is not really what I'm called to do. And you know, you've had a soul call, it just hits you and you're like, I can't ignore it. It's just how it goes. Dang it. And then you try to fit back in the box for about 6 months.
Manipulate it a little bit.
I didn't really see that. I didn't really hear that. But I did. And that's how She Sells was born. I took a lot of time off. And I did the nomad thing. I traveled everywhere you can think of that was like a spiritual experience. I was like, I'll meditate on top of this mountain. I realized that what I was most passionate about is empowering women. And that's what I did at Sexy Fit. I just wanted to do it in a different way. Because there's a giant shift happening where women are starting businesses and really coming out with all their gifts and talents. And that's what I wanted to do. And how do you grow your business? You sell. And that's how She Sells was born.
Yeah, it's funny because I do think that selling, we have like so many stigmas around it.
Yes.
And I just will never forget years back having that transformational shift. I was listening to a talk, and they were talking about selling and how we're selling. Like, we sell every time we're in a relationship, every conversation, we're selling ourselves because it's really how we're presenting ourselves. And so it's so important for women to get over the hurdle, and men to get over the hurdle of selling, because if you truly believe in what you are selling, you know, you don't think of it as selling. You're thinking of it as really helping someone and bringing value to their life.
Yes, absolutely. And women are really changing the landscape of sales because men are more transactional. It's all about, stats and facts, and apparently food. Oyster parsley. And women are more emotional. So we're all about experiences, and we're all about spa days and brunches. I've never heard a man say, I'm gonna go get mani-pedi with my friend. Like, they don't think that way. We think in experiences. So I think if women truly use their superpower of relationship building and emotion in their customer experience, the thing would sell itself, which is magic.
That's a great, so tell us about what you consider magic. What is magic?
Really, it's really great because, and I love how Rob said I used to love magic. I love magic too, as you can tell. Magic is really something, let me just give you an example. So my boyfriend and I, the smooch man, we were traveling to go to a wedding in New York. And I rented a dress from Rent the Runway because after I looked at my closet, I was like, I've worn everything in here. I don't really want any of this stuff. And Rent the Runway solved that problem a while back. So I phoned them and I explained what the wedding was like, and they helped me pick out the dress. And I was like, oh, you're actually taking the time helping me pick out the dress. And then I got the dress, I tried it on, it was perfect. We went to New York, and for some reason, when I put it on there, I didn't really love it. I was like, I don't really love it. So overnight, I got shipped a brand new dress for free. It arrived. It arrived on time, and I was able to feel like a beautiful Cinderella at this wedding. And the next day, when I dropped it off in this really cool garment bag, I was like, "Can I keep the bag?" Yeah. It was free shipping. So all across was a magical experience of ease, and I felt like a Cinderella the whole time. Right. So their magic is making me feel like Cinderella. Yeah. And
that's like UX, it's a user experience. One of my girlfriends has one of the largest UX companies, and it's so important. I agree with you. And Rent the Runway is one of my girlfriends uses. Also, I've been debating if I'm going to use it, but they're so good. It's such a great example of that. So for you, the magic in that is what?
The magic in that is making you feel like Cinderella because they're weaving in magic in their customer experience. So household brands are going out of business and going bankrupt. And there's a new type of brand and business that's actually thriving, getting media, and has raving fans. And the difference between, let's say, Macy's or JCPenney or Toys R Us even, that just closed 174 stores all across, because there's no magic in that experience. It's stuff and cash register. There's no magic in there. So what I mean by magic is a special touch of customer experience that makes people feel a certain way.
And as women, that's such a gift that we can capitalize on, is the ability to really connect with people and to foster those relationships.
Absolutely.
But for me, I can socialize and build those relationships. When it comes down to the selling part, when it comes down to the money part and how to capitalize on that, I completely struggle. I don't know how to make that final transaction.
That's a really great obstacle that a lot of women are facing. When you are creating magic in your business, the thing really sells itself, because the point there is to create such a great referral retention structure that it becomes a point of conversation. So let's think about Sex and the City. You've seen Sex and the City, I don't know if you've seen Sex and the City. Do you remember the moment when they're all getting together for brunch and, Carrie sits down and she's like, oh my God, look at this pair of amazing shoes. And I bought them here and I bought them, this way. And the person talked to me this way and I maxed out my credit card. Oops.
And then Manolo Blahnik became a huge brand.
It's actually really crazy because I lost my chew. Do you remember that phrase? That made Jimmy Choo what Jimmy Choo is now. Launched an iconic brand. So the point is, how do I create such a magical experience I don't actually have to sell? That Carrie, when she puts a pair of Manolo Blahniks, she tells Samantha and everybody else about the experience. And the key thing is, when Samantha or Carrie walk into my business, they get the same experience. It is consistent experience all across, because there's nothing worse than recommending something to a friend and a friend shows up and they're like, oh, that was totally terrible. I don't want to go back there anymore.
Wow.
So,
It's so powerful.
No.
There was a book I read once on this, it was called The Marketing Power of Motion. And you could have written a book. I mean, it's one of the countless things I love about you is that your wealth of wisdom is so deep. And in the book, they consistently said, look, women drive most purchasing decisions, even when the man actually makes the purchase, right? I mean, how many things do we do as men in order, for women? So, or do we want to do in order to attract women or whatnot? And one of the things they said was, most of us think that we're very rational and logical in our decision-making process. But even men who are like, oh, I'm just going to stick to the facts and the numbers, actually make emotional decisions first, and then you backfill it with data in order to justify the emotional decision you actually made.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, we all do it.
I'm manifesting my future.
Yeah, everything I've been doing this whole show, I'm like, the Maserati Gran Turismo, and I'm like, I can find a way to justify this. But, so when it comes to creating that experience, that positive experience, and that's what I'm hearing you saying, is that mostly people remember how you make them feel. not what you tell them, not what you ask them necessarily, but how you make them feel. What recommendations would you have for people in order to create consistently positive experience so that they can walk away and the sale can be made effortlessly?
Great question. I discovered, because I've done a lot of research on this, because when I was choosing my next venture, I was like, what's different? What's actually going to stick long term? And I realized that every customer, it doesn't matter if they're buying, if you're a lawyer or a beauty business or a magazine, your customer goes through 5 phases. They're first completely unaware that you exist. They don't know that you're there, but they have a problem. They have an issue. They need a solution. They're completely unaware. Then they become aware of you through Carrie at lunch or through this conversation. Then they get in this learning discovery phase, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go on their website and I'm going to check a few things out. I'm going to make sure that what I already think about them matches. And the thing is, they've already decided if they're going to purchase from you in an aware, slightly knowing what's happening phase and that initial discovery. So the purchase is actually already made. We just don't know that. So when we begin a sale from a purchase phase, which is, by the way, the next phase after learn, we're missing out on the whole opportunity to design perception 3 steps before that. And then the thing that happens after that is retention and referral. And to kind of sum that up, you don't stop a sale when money is handed over. You stop a sale when they get a result. So when they get a result is when you still are making that sale, because that's the point of retention and referrals and how you actually going to create that magic in your business that's cohesive. So
I just love that.
So I mean, it sounds complicated in some ways, and not complicated in many ways. But I think what I'm hearing you say also, and what's coming through, is like you need a team. Like Jazz is like, there's parts that are geniuses within. There's so many geniuses within that what you just said, right? So how do you help people create magic with? Is it with teams? Do you help them create that? I
help them create magic with a framework, which is the aware, unaware, and there are particular pieces in there because we're tracking feelings and touch points and questions and numbers. And you are asking a really valid question. Okay, I'm hearing this whole magic thing. This sounds really, really hard. Like, how do I execute this magic with the bag and the shoe and the thing, perception building? And it's actually really, really simple for women. Because if we step into our natural gift of how do I make people feel? What do I want them to think? How do I want them to feel? The thing actually comes easy because you don't have to invest thousands of dollars in gifts. It's just the extra thank you and the extra touch and the little bit extra. So it's possible for a solopreneur. What are you putting on your invoice? Is it thanks for buying? Or is it something that can make me feel special and good that I just spent all this money? And it's possible in large corporations too, because let's say Sephora can create a magical experience by not making me stand in line, which just drives me crazy. Like, come on, guys, it can be so much easier than that. So, yes, it can be a team, but the thing is, when you think about customer first, the experience will create itself, and you don't have to have a good big team to do that.
Wow, so it's follow through. I remember, so I played baseball, and growing up playing baseball and basketball, I remember I could never hit the ball out of the park, no matter how, and I kept trying to get stronger and stronger. And then one day I discovered, somebody explained to me that, Rob, the problem is not that you're not making contact with the ball, but you're not following through after you've made contact with the ball. And when you start doing that, then you just hit them out of the park over and over again. And that's precisely what you've explained. I have to explain that to the guys out there who are like, what are they talking about? Feelings?
I love this.
But it's really powerful. And I hear you also saying that part of it is like, there's sort of persuasion and then there's persuasion. So a lot of this is not just the follow through, but it's what happens even before you walk in the room, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, how do you get into the right either mindset or that right sort of attitude or climate so that when you walk in the room or you have a pitch or something like that, that you're prepared to deliver in a way that would sort of drive the momentum of the
It's kind of like foreplay
Yeah.
and cuddling.
Preschool play.
Yeah.
Great question. I think the key there is to really remember why we're selling the thing we're selling. Why am I selling the thing that I'm selling? Because if I'm being of service and I'm putting their interest and hopes and dreams, really. Because we could be selling cell phone lines, but what we're really selling is connection to the daughter who, father is calling, or you're not selling the shoes, you're really selling confidence on a date. So when you remember what value you bring and you are of service, it changes the whole conversation and it takes out the jitters of a sale beforehand. So to answer your question, how do I get in the zone? Because that's a conversation in a lot of sales training. Get in the zone and just start calling people. It's like, how can it be of value to this audience? How can it be of value to you, to all of your viewers and listeners? And it just flows naturally out of you after that.
What do you say, though, to the women who have trouble recognizing what their value is or putting a number on that?
That's a really great question, because a lot of sales conversations that's happening is like, charge what you're worth.
How do you know what you're worth?
So you've heard this, charge what you're worth? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we're priceless. We're one of a kind that you can't put a price on you. Like, how do you even do that? Like,
Yeah, I'm lost.
like you can't do
$1
that.
billion.
It's like, okay, my time is worth X amount of money, but really I just want to do what I'm doing and connect with people, and that, it's
Great question.
weird.
So what is the value that I provide for somebody, and what does it mean for them? So let's say if you are writing 2 articles for them so they can get press, what are these 2 articles of press going to add up to in a year or 2 years from now? So you're actually pricing the value of the service you provide, not yourself. And when you disconnect yourself from the thing that you're selling, it becomes a lot easier.
How do you do that?
Because now you look at it as a packaged product. So, and you sell a packaged product. So, and with coaching, like, it could be really tricky. I spend a lot of time in the coaching industry. Coaches are like, but I don't really deliver like a thing. It's all fluid and it all kind of flows, we kind of roll with the flow. But the thing is, remember the package. Remember the package that you're selling. It's a lot easier to sell the package than it is to sell yourself.
Right.
Because this is the value that you're providing. When you separate the two, it becomes a whole lot easier.
So I think she's saying, like, for example, like Jez would say, I do a red carpet whole experience with my expertise as a research entertainment reporter or something like that. That would be her package, say, for example.
Correct.
Removing self out of that. Oh, that is so much easier said than done, though, ladies. Wow.
It's, it certainly can be a process. And every time that we're uncomfortable in any situation, we're like, there's a lot of resistance that I'm feeling here. And it's really a question of, is this something that brings value to them in the monetary value that I think that it provides? Does that make sense? So if you focus on what it does for them, not what it does for you, because it's I'm going to say this, it's selfish to hide. So if you think about them first, you take you out of the experience, and you sell the package, and you sell how you make them feel throughout the process. The whole thing is going to be a whole lot easier because you got you out of the equation.
Yeah, I think part of the beauty of what you're saying too is that, if I hear you correctly, is that there's when there's not a going rate in the business, you have creative license to set the rate yourself, and that the challenge, it sounds like, partly is that I know particularly in the States here, we confound price with value a lot. So the more expensive something is, the more worthwhile or more valuable we assume it is, right?
Yes.
And so I can hear the challenge there, and like trying to determine, like, well, where exactly does that fit? So is part of that, in order to determine what price you should be setting, let's say if you've created a new business or service that's not out there in the world and you don't even know where to start, is part of it just taking into account the cost that would take to sort of, basically deliver that product or service in a really powerful way, and then looking at whatever the profit you would need in order to justify it